This is a video in collaboration with Kuro from the Intan channel, who a few years ago took on the task of illustrating the entire story of Ben 10. For now, it's my turn to present to you the second part of this great story, which is about to end. So without much more to say, I'll be quiet. 1 month and we begin. On Earth, the hybrids had begun their plans for universal domination, planting sleeper agents and slowly integrating into society. Now, with summer vacation finally over, Ben and Gwen return to school. A confused father of Azimuth soon visits and declares war on Ben after receiving false information that Ben has killed Azimuth. An incredible battle of giants takes place in the middle of Bellwood City. It turns out to be a catastrophe, as it causes hundreds of damages in this. The city secretly requests the help of several aliens to help rebuild Ben. In the process, the aliens have to camp beneath the surface, but over time, these camps would grow and form their own city. A year passes, and Ben unlocks a new transformation called Feedback, which he quickly becomes addicted to using. Meanwhile, in the Null Void, Kevin is in a prison operated by a plumber, and he meets a wise inmate. With knowledge about Osmosians, this guide helps Kevin learn to control his anger, which was the trigger for his initial mutation. He explains to him that the more energy an Osmosian absorbs, the crazier they become. Kevin learns to absorb matter, which allows him to create armor from any material he touches. Worrell helps Kevin escape, sacrificing his life at the hands of the prison warden, who has a deep hatred for criminals. This memory will haunt Kevin for a long time. Still trapped in the Null Void, Kevin is found and recruited by Dr. Cervantes, the leader of the Routers, a special covert operations division of the Plumbers. Cervantes was a corrupt scientist who frequently kidnapped children and experimented on them, trying to create an army of superpowered beings who could assassinate a target known as the Storm. When he met Kevin, he saw him as the key to achieving his dream and began using Kevin's powers to experiment on himself. A new team of children is recruited for the Routers. After a period of training, the Routers are sent to Earth to execute Ben Tennyson. Now, during the battle, the assault fails, which greatly upsets Dr. Cervantes, calling the Router's projector a failure. He is forced to erase Kevin's mind of any memories and does the same with the other Routers. He releases them once again into the Null Void, but Kevin was not alone. By his side was his friend Ardiet. Kevin and Ardiet are forced to wander through the Null Void, and after a long time, they finally find a way out. Both become con artists, and after some scandals, they decide to go their separate ways. On Galvan Prime, Azimuth returns to his homeworld and becomes the first thinker. All this happens during the creation of the Galvanic Mechamorph, a species of intelligent nanite drops that can possess and enhance any kind of technology, living on the moon. From Galvan Prime, called Galvan B, during the whole process, one Mechamorph was left incomplete, which corrupted both its biomass and its sanity. Its name was Malware. Azimuth worked to develop a cure to stabilize him, but Malware was considered a failure. He became hostile and tried to cure himself by kidnapping Albedo, one of Azimuth's assistants, forcing him to develop a cure. Unfortunately, this only further corrupted Malware, who now plans to absorb the Omnitrix and use its power to perfect himself. During a fight with Ben, he steals a partial Omnitrix blueprint and starts building a copy. With a scientist known as Dr. Psychobobs, the two realize they need DNA samples to program into their Omnitrix, and they hire the services of the best hunter in the galaxy, Kyvan. With him, they'll collect samples from Ben's aliens' predators. Later, they ambush the Tennysons. In an effort to crush Ben's spirit, he rips Feedback out of the Omnitrix and vaporizes him right in front of his eyes. Unfortunately, this causes a block that prevents Ben from using this transformation again. Malware, Doctor, Psychobobs, and Kyver spend the next 5 years collecting DNA samples for what they would eventually call their Nemetrix. Now Ben, heartbroken by the loss of Feedback, finally decides to take off the Omnitrix. 4 years later, Ben is now a normal teenager, 15 years old, living a normal life, playing normal sports, and drinking smoothies. With news of Grandpa Max's disappearance, Ben puts the Omnitrix back on. He, Gwen, and Magistrate Labrie, the plumber who recruited Max, begin their search. However, the Omnitrix begins a recalibration. After Ben's 4-year hero break, Ben now has a new Omnitrix and with it, 10 new aliens. The three meet Kevin, a 16-year-old who has returned to Earth for an arms deal, with the Forever Knights and the Denalians, who work for someone even more powerful, the Hybrids. After a brief fight, Magistrate Labrie dies in battle, leaving the responsibility to Ben, who encourages him to continue his grandfather Max's legacy. Kevin offers his help to defeat the Hybrids and the Denalians. Meanwhile, Ben has a nostalgic memory where, in the future, he and Kevin were friends, so he accepts the deal. and the iconic trio of alien forces is formed. Using their new abilities, the trio began recruiting superpowered allies for an upcoming invasion. Some were good, others were bad, and some were quite questionable. The three finally discover that Max is still alive and has been secretly investigating the Hybrid's fleet. Just to pretend to die once again, he uses the projector's gun-taking ability and creates a grenade to kill the one they thought was the only Hybrid's general. Grandpa Max gives Ben and his team another chance to fight to honor Grandpa Max's sacrifice. Ben continues his journey to form a valuable team. As the Hybrid's invasion approaches, many revelations are made here. Gwen discovers that her powers come from her alien grandmother and that she has been using magic to channel her abilities. The Tennyson team meets Professor Paradox, believed dead after a failed experiment. He traveled through time but was actually thrown out of reality. Here he learned to bend time and space and to find his way back, which is the most important thing. Ben had unlocked his most powerful transformation so far, Alien X, an almost omnipotent being who can bend reality with a simple thought, although this power has many complications to be able to use it. Later, after a distress call from the Null Void by one of the allies, what has he done? Ben discovers that Max has escaped Death's grasp once again, and that the Null Void grenade ended up transporting him to this dimension, where he has started an uprising against the dictator The Void, who is actually Dr. Animo. Ben helps the revolution, but Max refuses to leave because he believes he still has work to do there, but he promises to return someday. Meanwhile, the Hybrids have set their plans in motion. The war officially begins with the fall of Galvan Prime, Asmo's home planet. He and Paradox then set things in motion. Ben recruits all the plumber kids for a final battle against the Hybrids, as they are considered the last line of defense against Asmo's extinction. At first, he refuses to let Ben take part in the war, since the Omnitrix is too valuable to risk losing. But after realizing that nothing will stop Ben from fighting, he grants him access to the Master Control, which gives him all the powers of the Omnitrix. Ben fights his way to the control tower. Hybrids, only to discover that the real Supreme Council was located on the original planet of the Hybrids. Max returns triumphantly with his own team to give Ben the chance to head toward the Supreme Council. Here it's revealed to us that the Hybrid race is actually dying and they intend to destroy the galaxy along with themselves. Ben comes up with something, using the Omnitrix's genetic damage repair to rejuvenate the entire toxic lineage of the Hybrids. What's more, he does it. He recombines their DNA and gives them a second chance at life. With the war over, Ben Tennyson is recognized as the savior of the universe. The Hybrids return home, and Max continues training the Max Force, his new team of recruits, while Asmo says goodbye to Ben, who once again has lost access to the Master Control. Ben's new heroic status starts to cloud his judgment and causes his ego to rise. Months later, Vilgax arrives on Earth with Siphon and issues a Conqueror's Challenge. A law enforced across the galaxy allows the opponent to challenge the greatest hero of that planet, stating that the winner stays with everything. Vilgax has done this on 10 other worlds, including his home planet, which has now been renamed Vilgaxia, redeeming his status as a criminal. Banished to a respected leader and a warrior with his 10 victories, thanks to these 10 victories, now Vilgax wields new powers and weapons to ensure victory. Kevin and Ben try to hack the Omnitrix after Asmo refuses to help Ben, because he now has a much more arrogant personality. The experiment, as expected, goes wrong, breaking the Omnitrix and releasing some of Ben's aliens into the world and permanently mutating Kevin. For the second time, the team does everything they can to recover Ben's lost aliens, but the Omnitrix is still broken. The challenge begins, and Ben seems to be the perfect match for Vilgax's new powers, until Vilgax takes the lead and destroys Piedra. Suddenly, the broken stone pieces begin to reform into another transformation, bringing back the old Diamond Head, one of the original 10, with which he gives Vilgax a good beating. As time goes by, Kevin's mutation seems to be irreversible, since no one is able to figure out how to cure him. Now Vilgax, after his defeat, continues to pursue the trio and eventually teams up with Albedo, former assistant of Azimuth, who after a failed attempt to recreate the Omnitrix was accidentally genetically altered and now looks like Ben. The two agreed to form an alliance to recover the Omnitrix from Ben. Albedo would use the Omnitrix to cure himself, and Vilgax would use it to rule the galaxy. Albedo eventually steals the Omnitrix core from Azimuth to complete the Ultimatrix, a device that can turn Albedo into Ben's aliens and then evolve them into their ultimate form. Both villains capture Gwen and Kevin and threaten to execute them unless Ben hands over the Omnitrix. Ben complies. and Vilgax uses the Omnitrix to power his army of bioids, finally achieving his dream of commanding an army of users. From the Omnitrix, Vilgax betrays Albedo and keeps the Omnitrix for himself, while Vilgax begins his reign over the galaxy. Ben activates the self-destruct of his Omnitrix through a voice command, telling Vilgax that the Omnitrix will destroy itself. If he doesn't give it back to Ben, the squid thinks Ben is lying and lets the Omnitrix explode, destroying him and causing him new harm. Ben, with no other options, has to steal the Ultimatrix from Albedo to once again gain the power to transform into his aliens. With a small difference, since now he can turn into the ultimate versions of his aliens. During the battle, Vilgax's ship falls into the sea, and Ben fights him in his first forms with additional ultimate swamp fire. The destruction of the Omnitrix also cures Kevin, since the frequency of his original experiment is what kept Kevin in his mutated state. Now the team has tension with new abilities. He continues with his subtitled journey,